Welcome to the Real Estate and Wealth Podcast, your go-to resource for navigating the world of real estate investing and wealth creation. This podcast is brought to you by Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation, your trusted, caring, and responsive short-term mortgage lender in Alberta and Ontario. We explore strategic and tactical solutions to elevate your real estate portfolio, drawing insights from seasoned Canadian investors and trusted advisors. In each episode, we dive into various aspects of real estate investing, including market trends, property analysis, financing strategies, risk management, and much more. Whether you're a seasoned real estate investor looking to expand your portfolio or a beginner taking those first steps, this podcast is for you. Today on the podcast, we have Jolene Livingston from Bespoke Social Profit Solutions. Super excited for our conversation today. I know you have quite obviously the history in the background, which I'm super pumped to get into.
Yeah.
Would love to hear obviously more about yourself, how you got into this, and a quick story about yourself of
my origin story.
Origin story. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. So origin story. So I've been working in and around nonprofits for about 25 years. I also worked at Molson at one point in time.
Oh, there you go.
So I started my career kind of in the marketing comm side of the equation, and did a lot of partnerships and sponsorships, and then decided to jump over to the other side of the equation and become part of the nonprofit sector. And I don't think anybody really designs or sees the nonprofit sector or as a destiny career. But it's been a great career for me, and I've loved it. I worked at the University of Calgary for a decade, and I worked with the then president working on big philanthropic gifts. So 7, 8, 9-figure gifts to name faculties and all of that, and learned a ton there. And what I really learned was, the secret to social transformation is the intersection of philanthropic interests and really worthy causes. And so really saw some amazing projects unfold through my career there. I then retired, and this was about 12 years ago. I had a young son who was struggling in the school system. And so both my husband and I busy traveling a lot and not paying attention and not paying enough attention at home. Yeah. Revolving door of nannies.
Yeah.
So I decided to stay home for a bit. So I stayed home for 15 months and tried the stay-at-home mommy thing. But I love to work. And so I started Bespoke, started really small, 20 hours a week. And what we do is we're a professional services firm. We work primarily with nonprofits and charities to help with capacity building. So governance, strategic planning. Our wheelhouse is revenue diversification, and then brand amplification. So at the end of the day, if you want to raise money, you have to have a brand awareness, as you guys would know. Yeah. You need to be doing network and relationship building, and you have to have an executive team and a board that really understands what it means to diversify your revenues and amplify your cause.
So consulting for nonprofits.
In a very simple way, yes. Consulting for nonprofits,
Cool.
yes.
And you founded it?
I founded it. It stayed small we actually only made a decision to grow a few years ago. And while we did that, we learned a lot along the way. And that's how we got into the affordable housing equation. So we started a nonprofit 2 years ago, just because, running consulting services wasn't challenging enough.
And you mentioned earlier, the intersection of philanthropic interest in worthy projects. So you deemed affordable housing to be an extremely worthy project.
Yeah. And not a project, it's a social crisis.
Yes.
And so, I had a client about 5 years ago. Have you heard of the Resolve campaign?
No.
So this is kind of how we got into Partners for Affordable Housing. So between 2012 and 2018, there was a campaign in Calgary where 9 agencies came together and with some community builders and started a campaign to fundraise for affordable housing projects. So each one of those agencies had a project, and over a 6-year period, they raised $300 million, approximately $300 million. I don't know the actual firm number. But about 75 million of that came from philanthropy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, over 6 years. And
Under the umbrella of the Resolve campaign.
Correct.
But 9 various
different nonprofits came together, pooled their resources, a ton of effort, obviously, a lot of volunteers, and really high profile volunteers working with the charities. And the end result was 21 buildings housing 1,850 Calgarians, in and around $300 million raised. And again, I don't know if that number is firm.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of benefits that came from it. I mean, not just the buildings, not just the housing of people, but those were critical milestones. But also the ability for those agencies to lift their brand in the community. So some of them didn't have big brands, weren't well-known household names, like some of the charities you'd be aware of.
Yeah.
So that was one of the benefits. 2 of them ended up merging recently, 2 of those organizations, and just built a really strong affinity between all of them.
Yeah.
But the outcome was pretty significant, and the pooling of philanthropic capital into affordable housing was significant. And since that time, that effort discontinued. I was hired by 5 of the agencies that then wanted to build a local effort, which is now called Calgary Affordable Housing Foundation. And so they're just getting going. But what we learned through that effort was nothing like that existed at a national level. So when you think about like big charities like Canadian Cancer or Heart and Stroke Foundation, nobody's doing anything at a national level to attract philanthropic capital into affordable housing
To address
across
affordable
Canada.
housing.
Yeah.
It's municipality by municipality.
And province, it's different in every province. It's different in every municipality in terms of whose jurisdiction it really is.
Right.
There's a ton of players, community players. So there's thousands of community housing providers. I would say most of them are not doing philanthropic fundraising. And so they're not actively, there are some, like if you think about Habitat for Humanity, they're doing national fundraising for their cause. But nobody is representing kind of the community housing providers in a way that attracts philanthropic capital to one of the biggest issues we're facing as a society.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd give it a go.
And this is what Calgary Affordable Housing is giving a go?
Calgary Affordable Housing is giving it a go in Calgary.
Right.
We have started a national organization that is giving it a go across Canada.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
So our mandate is collective investment. So bringing social capital to the table, because the capital stack is really hard to make work for community housing providers, especially when you're dealing with below market units.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we do everything from shelter to kind of around 30% of below market, or 30% below market. And market can be obviously defined many ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're really dipping into the affordability equation, like the deeply subsidized affordability equation.
Right.
So collective investment, collective voice. So we want to run national campaigns, kind of the size and scope of Let's Talk Mental Health, but putting the me in home. Because we believe we're all 1 degree of separation away from somebody who has been or who is at housing insecure. And the last one is collective knowledge. And so we are right now starting to build a repository whereby we can house all of the projects across Canada for those who want to play. And we can bring philanthropy to those projects. So if you're a national philanthropist and, for instance, you want to support women fleeing domestic violence, we can show you all the projects across Canada that could come to market within 12 to 36 months but need a leg up. So they need some equity
Right.
in their stack, their capital stack.
Yeah. So viewing it from a very holistic approach
Yes.
and connecting those dots that, unfortunately, especially in the charitable space, sometimes aren't easily made. Yet there's so many people doing so many good things.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, like any organization, if your brand is not well known, which, there's thousands of providers. Some might have a couple of units. Some might have numerous buildings. Most don't have a huge profile because they don't have big marketing budgets.
Right.
And most don't have designated resources to actually go out and do what you guys do, business development for your business.
Yeah.
And, bringing in capital to your enterprise. And so that's what we do, but with philanthropists. And so, we hope to represent. We're starting right now. We're doing a project in Canmore, and we're starting a project in Toronto, whereby we're bringing community housing providers together under one collaborative campaign and bringing philanthropy to the equation.
Cool.
Interesting. Very, very.
That was a lot. Sorry.
No, yeah. No, it was really good.
Wow.
So like my mind starts going to like, how does the consortium, should I call it a consortium?
We're starting at a consortium level.
Okay.
Like we would call it kind of a collaborative campaign.
Okay.
And so, go ahead.
And how do you identify which municipalities to serve? Is it comes from, let's call it a lead within that community, and then your consortium comes in and supports, or how are those decisions made?
It's a good question. We are really in our nascent stages. So in Canmore, we approached the actual municipality and said, we would love to do a discovery phase in your community, a pilot in your community. We know you have an affordable housing crisis like everyone else in the country, but theirs is much different.
Yeah, theirs is profound just because of how expensive it is in Canmore, and rents or buying, never just renting is remarkably expensive because of the overall. I think it all boils down to there's just a lack of supply. So in turn, everything is expensive.
Lack of supply and and really their crisis is more about workforce, right?
Yeah.
It's teachers, it can be doctors. It's not the same as what we would see in Calgary. Anyway, we getting going. We had seed funding from the government of Alberta to get going, and we approached a couple of different municipalities. Canmore was the first one to say yes, and they have invested in us to do a discovery phase to see if their community would like to collaborate around doing affordable housing. And so it really has to be at the will of the nonprofits to work together. And so the way we're approaching it right now is we're doing a discovery phase. So we're interviewing probably 30 different community members. We call, from those who can inform and influence the outcomes of our work with them.
Right.
And so
Influencers.
Not just, influencers and informants. So it can't be for them, it has to be with them.
Yes.
And we don't want to bring
So would that be like city planning, that type of
whole bunch.
informants?
So we are talking to about 30 people, all from what we call P4 partners. So we've trademarked the term P4, which is public, private, philanthropic, and providers, community housing providers. So we're interviewing them to see what could a collaboration look like. What are the opportunities in your community? What are the barriers that we might face if we were to, work under one umbrella, one investment prospectus, or we call it a case for support in the fundraising world. So if we had all of the projects in Canmore under one umbrella that could come to market with the support of social capital, either social impact investment and or philanthropy, how would we play together? How would we do that? And, respect your values, respect your projects, respect, and work in partnership together. So we're in the early stages of doing that right now with Canmore, but we've received a lot of really great information about the collaboration and the will for a collaboration.
Right.
Because a lot of the nonprofit housing providers don't want to be fundraising,
Yeah.
but they need capital.
Yeah.
You can't build without equity, right?
So you'll basically bring the stakeholders together, develop call it through the information, be able to develop a strategy. And I guess even through that, what's nice is you're going to be able to get a feel for, we have a willing and able project, or we have too much resistance. It might not look as successful as we thought.
More so, we're working with people who have viable projects.
Okay.
So they've already got a plan in place.
Okay.
And it doesn't just have to be a new build. In Canmore, it mostly will be new builds, but we could, we want to fundraise for builds, for conversions. We also plan to have a planning fund because there's very little grant funding out there for nonprofits to do really great planning, project planning. Mm-hmm. And then we want to have a rental supplement fund too, so that, if you're looking at a mixed income building, we can work with the landlord and a nonprofit to deeper discount units within that building.
Right.
Does that all make sense?
That makes total sense. What would conversions look like?
Well, we're working with a developer here in Calgary right now. He was recipient of the city's conversion funding. So he's doing, for instance, office to
office to residential rentals.
Yeah.
Okay.
And through that program, through the city, he has to offer, I think it's 30% of the units at 80% of market.
Right.
But that's still not low enough for, some of the
to truly capture those in need.
Right. So what he's doing is he's partnering with charities who, it's their role to understand who needs the units.
Yeah.
So to qualify tenancy and to assist with placement of appropriate tenants within those units. And our role will be to help fundraise for that charity to get those units even deeper discounted.
So they've agreed, 80%.
Yeah.
But then the various charities will come in to further discount to make it even more affordable for
the tenants.
Those in need.
Yeah, the delta. So
yeah.
Already the units are discounted by 80%. We'd like to see them be more like 60% below market.
Right.
And the nice thing about this project, he's got the city at the table, he's got CMHC at the table, and he can open doors probably within 18 months.
Wow. So this would be a good example of a real estate investor who has a philanthropic desire, partnering with
the
consortium
and with us
on these projects.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And are there, so as it relates to we know that there's an affordability issue. In terms of those in needs, is there any trend? Is there any commonalities that you guys see a lot of?
Like in terms of the population?
Population demographics. Is it continuing is the problem getting bigger?
It's getting bigger exponentially for various reasons. And again, I'm not a researcher, I'm not an academic, so I don't have all the stats on that.
Right.
I did read a report recently, and I can't quote the number, but it was staggering in terms of the increase of need in Ontario. And I can get the information for you. I wish I had the stat because it was mind-blowing. But there's right now 4.4 million people right now in need of affordable housing. 3 million of those people are in need of deeply subsidized affordable housing, and it's growing. The problem is growing. So in terms of
more than 4.4 million is more than 10% of the Canadian population.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. And in terms of populations, it varies. It doesn't discriminate either. So when you think about mental health or COVID,
right.
What COVID did to so many families. We knew families that, were living kind of paycheck to paycheck in terms of making mortgage payments and whatnot. Or if you think about addiction doesn't discriminate,
totally.
And it can derail families and it can derail your socioeconomics. And so, populations in need are Indigenous families, women, single women with families, domestic violence. It runs the gamut. Any social cause that you can look at, health, seniors.
Yeah.
My dad died with $1,000 in his bank account.
Wow.
And if, we're middle income families, so he never would have been homeless, but, without a family around him, he could have been. We're all 1 degree away from somebody that is in need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, was that
Kind of
intense?
no, it was good because it's the reality of the situation.
Well, you know what I was going to ask about is, okay, so you saw the need for this cause, which is why you jumped into it. Like, I'd love to know like some of the cool outcomes that you see. Obviously, by getting someone in a house, having that stability, that's going to increase the likelihood that they're going to get on their feet, thrive, and become. I guess is the goal to become self-sufficient, so to speak. I don't know if that's the right word for it.
For sure. Yeah, and I'll share. I'm not a social worker. Like, really, my gift is philanthropy, and we're just getting going on this. And so there's a million stats out there around why community housing is so important, and wraparound supports, like, and how you do housing, like how you respectfully do it, and different populations need different sorts of housing.
Right.
So I can't tell you what the percentages of outcomes are. Like and I certainly can't tell you for Partners for Affordable Housing because we're just getting our feet off the ground.
Yeah.
But there's all sorts of stats around the social return on investment and the cost that the lack of affordable housing has on our healthcare system, on our, penal system. It's a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you have any insights? Because it seems like there's so many different stakeholders. Like, how do you get alignment from so many different stakeholders who have competing priorities?
Yeah, we won't get alignment from all of them. Like, not everyone is going to want to play in the sandbox. Not everybody's going to want to collaborate. And that's okay. When Resolve was underway, there were more than 9 agencies invited to the table. Not everybody chose to do it. And so where there's a will, there's a way. And I can share from, conversations we've had with philanthropists and with corporate community investment, like, there's significant interest in having a collaborative approach to finding equity solutions for the affordable housing crisis. And there's a growing appetite from those entities to get involved in a way that's meaningful. And so we really want to act as a facilitator from project to funder.
Right.
And so, not everybody's going to play, and not everybody's going to want to fund it either. But we've only been, I started this work about 3 years ago. Most of it I did pro bono, just kind of figuring out if our thesis, if there was validity in the thesis that we had, or the hypothesis, not thesis, in the hypothesis that we had. And we did a lot of informal research, and we heard a unanimous yes, nothing exists. Somebody has to do kind of this rallying work. And, if you have projects from a philanthropic perspective, bring them to my table and I want to take a look at them. But what we also heard was, as philanthropists, they want to get involved, but they don't necessarily have the time to go out and find all the projects that they might invest in, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so
they have a mandate, but trying to work through where they want to place their money is a difficult task.
It is a difficult task. Yeah, like some foundations, family foundations, are set up with a lot of rigor, and they have staffing and they have granting policies, and they're set up with mechanisms to have nonprofits come to them,
right,
and go through a process to receive funding. Others don't have that kind of
sophistication.
Sophistication, and or some don't want to do it that way. They want to be more like angel investors, right?
Right.
They want to,
I guess mandate as well, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm interested. What beliefs did you have about starting this endeavor that were either complete paradigm shifts or the complete opposite of what you originally thought?
That's an excellent question. I had no idea how hard it was going to be to build it and to get the initial seed funding. That took a couple of years, and me and my co-founder, who was in Toronto, put 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears literally, maybe no blood. There's definitely
There's
sweat.
lots of tears and
there
sweat.
there have been tears because, you know, we see the potential, and we've done this in other realms before, like in other collaborative campaign environments. So we know that it can work. But when you're the new kid on the block and you're maybe not a housing expert, you know, there's lots of skepticism. But once we got our first tranche of funding, you know, after pushing the rock uphill for a couple of years, we're on a roll now. So we've had 2 donors come to us in the last 3 months, each making $1 million contribution, one out of Toronto and one here in Calgary. And we're starting to see increasing interest from different municipalities to see how we can work with them. And so there's not really been a paradigm shift in, I don't know if I'm answering your question, I'm sorry if I've veered off, but there's not been a paradigm shift in what we set out to do at all. Like, I think what we thought we would do, we're starting to do now. We just didn't know how hard it would be.
To get that first tranche of funding.
Yeah.
To get your idea across the finish line into a donor's hands.
Yeah.
And be able to start rock and rolling with the mandate.
Yeah, getting to the point where we could build the team, start to build the programs, you know, get to the place where, like I mentioned, the technology, we're just investing in our technology now so that we can start to have this repository of projects, so that, much like real estate, like if you're a real estate property manager, you would have a list of all your properties online and accessible to your tenants or whatever it may be. We will do the same for affordable housing and bringing philanthropy to the equation.
Okay. And you talked earlier about or at least what I took from it, like how most people aren't driven to, their immediate drive is not into the philanthropic realm. In terms of, let's call it full-time employment. So when you build your team and find individuals to work for you, is that a challenge?
Well, we're just getting started, but I don't think so. So we're a nonprofit. We're looking for wickedly talented fundraisers. There are lots out there. There are lots that are not wickedly talented too. Like every single
like
career, right? You know, I've been around the block long enough that I think I know how to figure out the ones I want and the ones that probably won't work for us. I think, you know, we're seeing a lot of interest in what the mandate is because people really care about the cause.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we've done some hiring over the year, and we've gotten really great response. And we also, you know, networking is, like with your professions, is a really critical part of my profession around fundraising and meeting people and understanding their social connections. But we're also always on the hunt for amazing talent and keeping that in the back of our minds for when we're ready. So I would say no. Like, not so far.
Yeah.
And we have an amazing team, like just very cause related, very ambitious, really focused on changing the scarcity mindset that's within the current sector, nonprofit sector.
Right.
And bringing abundance to it because we need good talent to support these social causes.
Yeah, it's so important. You have the people with the energy, the ambition, and the mindset that they're going to be able to affect change. Yeah.
And we pay our people well too. Like we're, you know, if you look across the nonprofit sector, sorry, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here.
No, this is good.
If you look across the nonprofit sector, like the average salary is less than $50,000 a year. The average salary. And the sector's big, $10 billion a year, probably way more than that actually. It employs like over 2 million people. And the average salary is less than $50,000. So what we're actually doing is we're creating clients of social service agencies because they're working in social service agencies.
Right.
So we are not taking that approach. We're going to hire people at market and bring wickedly good talent to the table. And, if you have a really good fundraising shop, for every dollar you raise, for every dollar spent on your mission, you will raise 10.
Do you have any common, or do you notice any common themes of the top fundraisers that you notice in either their attributes, personality, habits, anything along those lines?
I think it would be very similar to what you guys do, like in business development, networking, super curious.
Yeah.
Like really wanting to learn about
One of the
people.
curious people I know right here that I've met. Yeah.
Creative, like the ability to see opportunity even in difficult situations. So, we might not always fit in a perfect box in terms of where our funding streams typically would come from, but there's ways to get creative with funders.
Totally.
And meet them at a sweet spot.
Yeah.
So
To be able to bend the box or connect the dot and make what could have been outside the box fit in the box.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And incredibly driven too. Like good fundraisers are driven by numbers. They like to see the numbers, right?
Yeah.
They like to see what they've raised. But they're also incredibly driven by the transformation that occurs from philanthropy to cause. Yeah.
I love it. Curious what the future holds. Any goals, targets, where you'd like to see?
Timing for this is perfect. We for the nonprofit or for partners?
Both. Either.
Yeah. So
Like where do you see the biggest opportunities? What excites you about the future?
Yeah. Cool. Partners for Affordable Housing. So we just went through our planning session yesterday, so your timing is perfect.
Yeah.
So we started with a 10-year plan. Like where would we love to be in 10 years? And then drilled it down to a 1 year. So I would say in 10 years, our BHAG is to be raising close to $200 million a year, if not more, with 85% of that going back into affordable housing. And so it's not just about the raise, it's about seeing the outcomes of units being opened and families living within the units and being able to follow their stories and hear their stories. We envision doing big awareness campaigns that really dispel the myths and destigmatize the populations that are in need of affordable housing, because it could be you or I if the tables were to turn for whatever reason. Again, mental health, addiction, trade wars. So yeah, it would be, that Partners is up and running, probably with 5 offices across Canada, that we have regional teams in areas of high concentration need, that we're working with really passionate philanthropists to put funding to work with really viable, great projects and not just new builds, as I mentioned, that we continue to look for creative solutions around affordability and housing. So, there's lots of great examples out there of people getting very creative about builds and so that we're working with some really talented developers and what else would I say? We're hoping, the other BHAG is that this charity might be a case study. I would love to have an academic partner following us right now for all the trials and tribulations of starting it, growing it, and scaling it. But that we would be a case study of abundance in a sector that is suppressed with scarcity. And so that we change the public narrative that, salaries have to be super low, that you can't put money into operations, that you shouldn't be marketing, that you shouldn't be spending money on fundraising. Like, how would you ever run a business like that?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, when I asked a question around talent, it's more that mindset of charitable work. They run lean, and they don't pay. Yet when you think of growth and you think of efficiency and you think of businesses that succeed, it's because they have amazing people that provide outsized results.
Right.
Yet from a mindset, I think within the charitable world, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So how do you operate a charity like a business where you're doing all the right things, you're bringing on the best talent, you're paying them right, and in turn, you're providing results that aren't common?
Yeah. And, you know, the scarcity mindset is steeped in really antiquated philosophies in terms of how charity started. And I won't go on a diatribe about that, but when you have a conversation one-on-one with a philanthropist or even, you know, I had a cab driver one day tell me, you know, that this one charity was raising a ton of money and what was he saying? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember. Oh, I wish I could remember. Sorry, it's blanking. Anyway, when you have the conversations one-on-one with individuals and you share with them what the reality is within those organizations and how hard it is to make their mandate work with, you know, low wages, high turnover, expectations of all the funding going into programming, not being able to upskill and reskill in a time of AI insurgence. And when you have those conversations, and then when you realize, like, especially with philanthropists, many of them they've started their own businesses. So they know you have to be scrappy at the beginning and you have to do a lot with less, but you grow your engine so that you can then do more, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you have those conversations one-on-one with philanthropists, with general public, they get it. But there needs to be more of those conversations.
Yeah, to build something great and sustainable, you don't do it by having mandates on reducing costs, reducing specific costs. Yes, you have to be efficient, but you need to be able to attract great talent. You need to be able to invest in your business, in your charity, in a way that allows it to grow, allows it to scale, allows it to bring in opportunities for great results.
Absolutely. And, you know, you were asking about where would I like to be in the future? I would like, you know, the next generation. They're very, you know, when I look at my teenagers, they're very cause-minded. And you know, I would love for them to see a career in the nonprofit sector as something that is accessible for them and something that maybe is even desirable for them. Like, I love the work that I do. And I love seeing the results of the work that I do, but we have to change the narrative about the sector and the social return on investment that it offers.
Very, very true.
Sorry, I feel like I'm going on a complete tangent. I feel like I haven't answered any of the original questions.
This is great. Yeah, I like, you touched on creative solutions in affordable housing. Can you give some examples of like what you're seeing out there for creative solutions?
Yeah, well, Resolve was one creative solution.
Right.
Banding together.
Okay.
You know, the other one I was sharing with you is this mixed income project. Like, there are other developers that could be doing this in many of their projects, but, you know, you have to have somebody at the helm that's willing to do a little bit more work that's outside of the scope of their normal day-to-day. Like, it's not a developer's job to work on discounting their units and qualifying tenancy. So you have to be able to put some time into being creative, building a relationship with like a like-minded values charity and going that extra mile. There's tons of really creative solutions that are coming online in terms of different builds and stuff, but I'm not going to talk about that because that's not my area of expertise. But what we can do is figure out who's doing those creative builds and help bring philanthropists and nonprofits to those equations to help with affordability.
Right. So for, let's call it the builders or investors, is there a business case for them, or is it just, hey, you are part of the philanthropy, so you're going to dedicate X% of this development to affordable housing? Like, is there any, call it pitch for lack of a better term, on the bottom line? By doing this, you are going to see a better result than not.
Yeah, I think, so if you're just talking...
Or is it purely altruistic?
There has to be altruistic intent, for sure. Like some triple bottom line. And the question is, do you want to pay for it through your taxes? Or do you want to get ahead of it?
Right.
And help be part of the solution before it exasperates your taxes? And so,
taxes, I guess, quality of life, community.
Communities,
So
you want to be safe in your community.
connecting those dots. Do you want your residents to be safe in those communities?
Right. Do you want to be safe in your community? Do you want to help your neighbor? I had a really wise gentleman once say to me, put out into the world what you want to get back from it. And I try to live by that philosophy. And I see the multiplier effect of it all the time when I'm steeped in it, when I'm not steeped in myself.
Right.
And so, yes, there has to be some kind of social conscience. There does, because you have to go a little bit of the extra mile. But the payback is your community, your children, your children's children. Like my kids right now, my son doesn't even think about owning a home. Like it's not even on his radar because it's just doesn't seem attainable for him. Whereas I knew I was going to own a home. And so, I would say you have to have a social conscience and you have to be for the community. I mean, yes.
For the community, for the future.
Yeah. You can still make money and do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess you just have to ask how much is enough.
Totally. Yeah.
Very true. Touch on all of my questions. Want to make sure that we didn't miss anything.
I don't think so. Just like maybe kind of in parting, like, okay, so our listeners or viewers, we're going to have some people that are philanthropists. We're going to have some people that are interested in, like, you got time, talent, treasure.
Yes.
What should they know? How should they be connecting with you on certain things? What are some big asks that you have for the community?
Oh, I love that. So time, talent, and treasure is fantastic. We're a small team. I would love to come back like in 2 years and have a conversation.
We'll
so
get that in the calendar.
We have some impact.
Yes, we'll get that in the calendar.
Yeah. We are trying to get some government funding for our operations so that we can put all the philanthropy into projects so that we can fund projects right now. So we've had two very benevolent philanthropists step up and offer to underwrite our operations. But we'd far prefer that philanthropic funding be reaching accessible projects right now that could open their doors with an infusion of cash. And so we're working hard with different levels of government to try and get funding to underwrite our operations.
And who works with government on that? Like, who is...
Me.
You're connecting. You're connecting with the policymakers. You're connecting with.
Well, we have some really great advisors. Like we have one out of Toronto, and actually he will be here April 23rd for our national launch. So his name is Mitchell Cohen. He's from the Daniels Corporation. Has been working in this space for a long time, and so he's been phenomenal at opening doors for us and opening a network to us so that we can get up and running and do what we do best, which is connecting philanthropic capital to really great cause-related projects. So I guess the ask is, we don't have an army of people right now that can pick up the phone and talk to everyone.
Yeah, totally.
And we've had a ton of interest. We are like building a board. We have advisors across the country. We're looking for philanthropic support to get us going. We're looking for those socially minded real estate investors that want to work with us to make an equation work with the nonprofit sector, with charities, that might hold some head leases or, there's lots of ways to slice and dice it, and goodwill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Check it out.
basically, if any of this aligns with our listeners, reach out.
Yeah, for sure.
And we will, of course, have contact
years.
information.
Yeah.
No, but we'll have contact information so that they're able to reach out.
Definitely in the show
Yeah,
notes.
we have a
100%.
website, and yeah, the team is growing, and so yeah.
Amazing.
Perfect. Any other final words or?
Let me think. Do I have to rush or?
No, don't rush at all.
Any final words? No, I guess just my parting words is, we've seen a lot of focus on government, nonprofits, and developers to solve this issue, and they alone are not going to do it. This one has to be an all play. It's too big. It's monumental. It's too important. And, that's why we're doing this. That's why we're building this Partners for Affordable Housing, is because, we all need to contribute to it in some way, shape, or form. Time, talent, treasure. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for joining. Thanks for your amazing work. I think,
Thank you.
It's absolutely critical that we figure out this housing solution, and it's going to be figured out in multiple ways.
Agreed.
Through charitable work, through business communities, through government incentive programs, through government and incentive programs. Could be on the charitable side, they could be on the capital side. They could be making it easier for our entrepreneurs to build units, add units, enhancing the business environment. I know we'll be hearing a lot about the affordability crisis, hopefully, starting in early March when we choose a new leader for Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you guys should be busy if whoever gets elected does it the right way.
Yeah, we're already busy, and regardless of what happens there, we can't wait.
Right.
We can't wait for the government to come up with the right solution. We all need to be not focused on the problem, yes, but let's focus on the multiple solutions that are out there and remove as much red tape as we possibly can.
Totally. I actually do have one more question.
Okay, go.
Are there is there any specific province or municipality where you're like, oh my God, these guys and gals, leaders, are thinking about it the right way. They're taking the right steps. And I don't want you to knock anybody, but just municipalities or provinces that are going above and beyond, and what would that look like?
I think BC is doing a great job with BC housing. Calgary's getting some notice, like the conversion project program has been really popular, and the accelerated timing around permitting, and the city's trying to be as entrepreneurial as it can.
Business
around
friendly,
this.
yeah.
Where do you want to focus your investments?
We are very broad. Well,
Okay.
we want to focus them on Calgary
Okay.
in terms of geography,
Okay.
but other than that, we're broad.
Okay.
Like we,
And how big are your grants? Like
like 100,000 a year is what we want to get out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ideally, we're putting out $100,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me
Mhm.
park that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And if ever your board wants to learn more about the work that we're doing, like there's a direct connect with what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So if it's like I'm on the board.
Yeah.
So if you have hey Jesse, here's something that you guys should think about as a long-term opportunity.
Yeah.
To give. We've done our more sizable donations have been through Chalice Society.
Okay. Chalice is awesome.
Yeah,
I love
they're
Jim
amazing.
Dyer. Yeah.
So I'm all
And
ears.
are you guys looking for any specific populations?
Nope.
No.
We're looking to have the best possible impact within our community.
That wraps up another episode of the Real Estate and Wealth Podcast. Be sure to hit that like button, share with fellow real estate enthusiasts, and subscribe to stay in the loop on all upcoming episodes. Get in touch with the team at Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation by calling them at 1-888-752-4642 or email admin@chmic.ca. The opinions expressed in each episode belong to the individuals featured and do not represent the views of Calvert Home Mortgage. While we provide valuable insights, consulting with qualified professionals ensures that your unique financial circumstances are carefully considered, aligning your investments with your long-term objectives. Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation is not a financial advisor, and we cannot advise you on making investments. There are risks to investing in real estate and the potential that you can lose all of your investment.